One of the things that I love to do is pull up the school application, which again, we have our one rental at a time school, and you can see it there on the screen. And what I'm going to do here with Casey is I'm just going to pull up some of the comments, some of the forum posts, and allow Casey to answer them. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm excited. Let's go.
Awesome. Awesome. So the first one, sorry, I clicked into one already. We're going to pull up, this is the one I wanted, is anyone else feel stuck? They've been investing in Austin for the last 5 years, but given the interest rates and whatnot, it's been a tough slog. How do you stay focused and motivated and moving forward? So what do you do when somebody feels stuck? Maybe you feel stuck or one of your students feels stuck. What is some advice you have for them?
That's a really good question. This year, personally for us, this past year, 2025, has been different. It was the first year that we haven't bought a property in many years. Not that we felt stuck, but that almost a stuck feeling, like I'm not sure which direction to go. Do we put our money in a new primary home? Do we buy more rentals? Do we start investing in a different market so all the eggs aren't in one basket? And so I think that a lot of people go through different times in their life where their goals change, and what they're doing is just isn't working for them anymore, and they're looking for different opportunities or different ideas. And sometimes it just takes thinking about it and kind of moving forward with something to realize maybe that's not the right answer and continuing on with what you were doing before. So 2025 was a weird time for me, and I think has been a really weird time for a lot of people. But I think that everything is looking up and looking good. And I think that 2026 personally is going to be a year of clarity. And I think if you've taken 2025 to reflect and to think about your personal life and your goals and your finances, it's time to pick something and just move forward in 2026 and not keep feeling stuck. You can't just stay in one spot. You have to move forward on something, and progress is better than no progress. So it's cool that a lot of people felt stuck. Time to pick a direction and choose something next year.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, having helped people for 20 some odd years, a lot the last 10 years, is, sometimes you have to give yourself some grace, because maybe you're measuring the wrong things. Like, for example, you didn't close a deal in 25 and you wanted to, but the numbers didn't work, and you're beating yourself up for that. Where in reality, if you step back, you underwrote 25 deals. You wrote 17 offers. You had 3 counters. You got 1 in escrow, but backed out because of inspections.
Yeah.
Sometimes new investors, frankly, just have the wrong yardstick, right? The yardstick's a deal closer. And I got to tell you, some of the best deals are the ones I didn't do, right? So what I would tell people in my world is just measure good activity. What's good activity? Do you have a buy box? Did you look every day? Did you meet 2 new people a week? Did you write some disrespectful offers? Do you have a follow-up script for your offers that you like, right? If you're doing the right activity, you're not stuck. It's just the market hasn't come to you yet.
Yeah. And I got one more thing to add to that too, if you're done.
Yeah.
I think that on that same note, a lot of people have these unrealistic expectations for what deals are. We are all looking for the most amazing deal ever. But I think too many people wait for that most amazing deal and get nothing, when there's plenty of first base or second base hits that you can get and start building equity and just moving on. Not everything has to be like the GOAT of a deal. It can be a regular deal that works. And especially with new people, with the social media, look at this amazing deal. People think like that's every day. That's not every day. You're not getting amazing guru deals every day. No guru is. So I think people wait for that social media hit and they don't take any action.
All right, here's the next one. It says, alone on the wealth journey. Do you ever feel alone on your wealth building stage? If yes, how do you cope with it?
Okay, luckily for me, I'm not alone. My husband is we're on the same level with that. But I have talked to many people who their wife or their husband is the spender, or they don't want to invest in real estate, or they don't understand it. And so they don't want to pursue that because they don't understand the benefits. And my advice to them every time I hear that is something that my mother-in-law used to do to me, which annoyed the crap out of me, but it was all good. what she would do when I was a younger mother and little kids, she would leave back when newspapers were around, she would leave these little newspaper articles out on the counter for me about parenting or, a choking hazard or just some little tidbit to help me be a better mother and, see. So for people that don't have a spouse or partner on board with the wealth journey and all those things, showing them the potential and showing them what real estate can do for you and giving them examples and real life samples of things that have worked for other people is what's going to get them on board. Once they can see the light at the end of the tunnel and see people that have done it, they're going to be more apt to listen to you. So I would say leave little things around, send them little, notes and things like that so they can get their wheels turning.
Yeah. The other thing I would tell you, and again, you're in my school community, so you're already hopefully finding that new tribe, is this was a big deal to me that I didn't understand. And that's really a big statement for me because it didn't hit me until Bigger Pockets. So I was lucky enough to speak at Bigger Pockets in Vegas this year. Thank you, Scott Trench, for giving me the spot. But after the session, I lined up and I talked to 15 or 20 people, and probably a third, maybe a half, basically said, I'm an adult. I don't know how to make friends. That's basically was the meaning. And, how do I do that? And, today, the good news is you can do it online, right? We have this great school community. The reason the school community is powerful is we now have 510 people going the same direction. Going the same direction is important. But the other thing that's important is everybody's at a different place and at a different pace. And that just gives you a lot of room to kind of learn, grow, and be active and be a good person. And then you throw on top of that, it's ridiculously priced at 67 pennies a day. I just added a $100 course, Get Your Money Right, because we broached 500, 9 accountability groups. It's the best place for wealth builders. So what I would tell you is most of you watching this are like me. You're trying to do it alone. That's not the way to do this game. You got to get around other people. You got to get a set of friends that want to build wealth. And take it from a guy who tried to do it alone for years, if not a decade. It is so much more fun when you have your people. Even if you just have an outlet to bitch. Sometimes stuff breaks. Sometimes there's an insurance claim. Sometimes there's eviction. Sometimes there's theft. And if somebody's around you that you can bitch to that also has that experience, sometimes you just got to let it out. And, I can't tell you strong enough. If you want to build wealth in real estate or build wealth at all, join our school community. And if you don't like it after a month, leave. But trust me, I think you're going to like it. So get around other people doing what you're doing is my advice. Here's one for you. What to look for during due diligence. So let's just say you put a property in contract. You're now in the due diligence phase. What are things you're looking for, Casey?
Good one. So obviously you need to do their typical things. You need to get a home insurance quote. If you didn't already get one, you should get a sewer scope is one of the big recommendations that I tell my students to get. So like the biggest investor surprise cost is a full line sewer replacement. But besides some of those things, let's say you're talking about home inspection, right? What are the things? Well, so most of my students are out-of-state investors. So they're having their agent, at first film the property and look around to make sure before they even enter contract. And really now, I don't even really do a professional home inspection unless it's like a lake house or something big or I'm not nearby. Otherwise, I'm pretty versed that I don't need to do that. And I can do my own. But there are things that you definitely need to look for due diligence during the home inspection. And one thing that people forget or that annoys the crap out of me, I said crap 2 times today, sorry, is when you have you have an agent do the walkthrough for you. Because again, all these things can be determined and you should not have really any surprises during the home inspection. So a lot of this is before, due diligence before you get under contract. They like to do these walkthroughs in the dark at nighttime, which drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So before you make an offer on a property, if you're getting your walkthrough and all your visuals at night, know that isn't the best idea. Okay. So you need to look up at the roof. A big one is the fascia board, and see if it's open to the attic. There's not always a fascia board and like a closed attic system in a lot of these older properties, and you're going to get critters that live in there. You're going to get water that gets in there, and ice and ceiling damage and roof damage and all that. So wood rot to me is one of the biggest things, and people will paint over agents and not agents.
Oh yeah.
Sellers will paint over it. So, wood trim around the windows. If you have a siding property and it's made of anything other than, vinyl or hardy board, they're going to paint over all the rot. And that's really expensive. And especially imagine if you had to replace windows, and not only windows, you have to now replace, the casing and everything around the window. That's tens of thousands of dollars. If you think a traditional window is $250 and someone charges $250 to install it, it's $500 a window. If you have 14 windows in the house, that's kind of a lot, not including wood rot. So for due diligence, just in that aspect alone, if you can make sure that there's no water and wood rot, you'd be off to a good start. There's plenty of other things, but I'll just stick with that one.
Yeah, I'll go to anywhere there's water, right? So you went kind of outside, I'll go inside, go into the kitchens, go into the baths. And, besides all the visual stuff, I like to jump up and down, right? To see what the subfloors are doing. Because again, sometimes this is the problem, right? You talked about painting. Sometimes they caulk it, they clean it, whatever, but they don't really do the expensive stuff, remove the tub, you reinforce the subfloor. You're looking for those sneaky surprises. And sometimes in a listing, a new paint job on the roof, like the ceiling, is a red flag to me. It's like, why did you do that? Right. And that would like, if they've taken the time to paint the popcorn ceiling or whatever, I'm like, we got a roof leak. We got something going on. Cause that's not normally on someone's list to paint that. So again, look for those kind of red flags. Let's do one more. This one's from my good boy, Frank. A tale of two symptoms. What's more dangerous? Analysis paralysis or buying too fast? Woo.
I mean, an analysis paralysis is worse because then you don't get anything, At least buying what does too fast mean, right? To me, too fast would mean if you're doing the Burr method and you're over leveraging, or you've got, people will get a loan for their down payment. They'll use a HELOC or a 401k. So they got a loan on their down payment, then they get a loan for the house. So now you've got a loan and the property is barely breaking even, and you might be even contributing $100 a month after rent, which if you didn't, have to get help for the down payment, it'd be a great cash flowing property.
Right.
But for now it's not. So too many of those I can see being a big issue. Buying too fast. Another reason why buying too fast could be a problem is if you do buy all your properties in 1 year and the market takes a hit, you have to lower rents. Now you're lowering all your rents, right? Let's say theoretically all your rents are lowered and all your mortgage payments are at today's purchase price, PITIs. So like the properties that I bought 10 years ago, 10 years ago, those mortgage payments were super low. I could cut rents in half and I could still cash flow, Right. So that's the benefit of not buying too fast. But if you're getting good deals and you're not over leveraging, it's way better than not buying anything at all.
Yeah, it is really a tough one. When I look at the number of people I've helped over the years or tried to help, without question, oh God, I would say 85, maybe as high as 90% of the people that are in this question are analysis paralysis, right? They've just continued to look. They are basically looking for the magic button, the easy pill, the secret ninja handshake, whatever. And they're busy, but they're doing nothing. Yeah. However, I have met a few people, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, that simply bought too fast, right? I tell a story, I think in my first book, One Rental at a Time, about a friend of mine who's like, who we introduced, right? We introduced to our property manager, our agent, our mortgage broker, right? He's somebody that I considered a friend. And he drove down there one weekend and I think he wrote 3 offers and got like 2 properties and, called himself a landlord. And I'm like, dude, you don't have a buy box. You don't know what you're doing. Yes, I gave you a leg up, but come on, right? Do the work, buddy. Yeah. So again, I think going too fast probably has a bigger risk to the downside because you don't know yet. You don't know if your numbers are right. You just don't know what you don't know. But certainly I've met more people that's had analysis paralysis. So we're going to do one more because I just found it. I thought it was fun. This again from Frank. What's the biggest myth about investing out of state, in your opinion?
I would say, and that's a good question, because most of my students I help with their first rental they live in high cost areas like California, New Jersey, New York is going to be really popular, and they are buying in more affordable states. So the biggest myth in buying out of state is people think that they have to be near their property in order to own it. I agree. It's better, right? It's better if you can be by your property, but they think I can't invest out of state because I have to be available to fix things. I have to drive by and see it so I can put my tenants inside. How am I going to get a new tenant if I can't show the properties? So that's the biggest myth, because people don't realize that there are other people that can help you and be your team members and do it for you. Now, it's easier said than done, right? You need to have quality. That's my middle name now, quality. You need to have quality team members and quality properties and a quality neighborhood and quality tenants. If you don't have all those things, yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, So my biggest hint to people, or tip is, if you are buying out of state, there are people that can do it all for you. You just have to find the right ones.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is the biggest myth is, I'll take the other side, is I've met a lot of California investors, high cost area investors, who say without doing any research that they have to invest out of state because out of state's cheaper. Well, cheaper doesn't mean anything. Cheaper. Like I joke all the time. I had more than one person tell me this a decade ago. Michael, you don't understand. Their house costs less than my Tesla. I'm like, why does that make it a good deal? Yeah. I mean,
because low rent.
I don't understand. I don't get it. Why is the simple fact that a house costs less than a Tesla a good deal? I mean, I don't understand. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I spent a year looking in the Bay Area for cash flow, and it doesn't exist. It didn't exist in 2001, let alone 2025. Just not here. But that said, I got in my car and drove 2.5 hours away and found it. So I think a lot of people default out of state because they don't want to get in a car and drive a little bit. So there's some of that. But we could go through a lot more. I love talking about our school community. Get in there, ask questions. Casey, where can people find you?
People can find me on YouTube, Brick by Brick Wealth, and Instagram, and my website as well. If you're looking for coaching or just want to see what I'm up to, everything is Brick by Brick Wealth. Easy peasy.
Thank you so much.